8:30.
No, I'm not quite situated
Okay.
yet. You can't call it to order until
Okay,
finding all this.
well, it's still 8:30, so.
Okay, there
Okay,
you go.
The meeting is called to order at 8:30. And Lee, would you lead us in the pledge?
We just got situated.
I'm sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody down there said it right. Yep, there's lots of, I just have given up on
The
that.
nuns made sure
Yeah.
it was one line, not two.
Yes.
Okay, so no public comment. Next, the consent agenda, discussion and possible action regarding any consent agenda item needing separate action. Does anybody have any discussion? No? Okay,
By unanimous consent, the consent agenda is adopted.
okay. Moving on to discussion and possible action regarding investment matters, the monthly investment performance report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, you have the monthly investment report before you. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have regarding said report.
I move it be accepted.
Just real quick on changes in planned net assets and the cash flow analysis. I noticed for a couple months now, our contributions seem to be higher than our expenditures. I know I would expect that in like July because of, you accrue all the, everything in, but are we at a positive cash flow now?
So there was a slight increase in the contribution rates beginning in July. But I don't think that would make that much of a difference. I do not believe we are at a positive cash flow basis in terms of contributions versus benefits. Robert, am I off base there with?
No.
Okay.
No.
So Tim's back on the financial report in the consent agenda item. Is that correct?
Mhm.
What you're looking at there? And it's the cash flow analysis. So you see that in the current month, we had $3.3 million in contributions and just a little under $3.3 million in benefit payments. And that was for the month of August. For the 2-month period, if you look at the year-to-date column, we have $4.4 million in contributions and $6.6 million in benefit payments. That shows you more like the true state. So I think what's happening here is pay periods pay dates are falling just outside of 1 month, inside another month, but when you look over that longer term, you see the true state of things.
Okay.
Okay,
And the market still goes up.
The market continues marching, and then backstepping and marching and backstepping and marching. But we're long-term investors, focus on that very, very long term, and we do what we do.
Okay, so back to the monthly investment performance report.
Any questions from the board?
Okay, number 4, discussion and possible action regarding proposed communications agreement.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself on this,
Okay,
so I'm going to wait outside.
all right. So James?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, you have the proposed contract before you. As I had mentioned last month during the administrative report, this would be coming. Met with Ms. Kersey. I think she could absolutely help us prepare some communications plans and strategies and improve our efforts here. As I mentioned in the memo, based on our conversation, my conversation with her, I think we'll be looking at an expenditure of around $5,000, but we wanted to have some room in there in case something comes up where we need some additional work from Ms. Kersey. So we put a not to exceed $10,000 limit in there, and I recommend approval of the contract.
Okay,
I
is
would-
there
I'd move to approve the contract.
And I'll
a
second.
second? Okay, any discussion? Okay, motion passes.
Jay, you want to take a vote? Voice vote.
All those.
Again, okay, those in favor,
Aye.
those opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay. So, you can come back.
Thank you.
So she would be an abstain.
My dearest friends, the Cruzies.
Yes.
Okay,
It's a good decision.
next on the agenda, discussion and possible action
Yes, I can now.
regarding proposed budget amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, you have the proposed budget amendment before you that includes two items. One being the communications contract that was just approved by the board, and the second being salary adjustments for staff based on the new Mendocino County Association of Confidential Employees memorandum of understanding that was approved by the Board of Supervisors last month. Would recommend approval of the budget amendment as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to discussion and possible action regarding board work plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, you have the board work plan and the communication metrics in your materials. I will highlight a few areas here under the 100% success rate in delivery of monthly retirement benefits. We continue working there. Haven't missed any retirement benefit payments. Still working on the historical benefit review project, making good progress there. We did finalize our PSPS plan, and the plan was tested during the recent power shutoffs. Although the office didn't lose power, we did prepare for that just in case it did, and had a well-functioning plan. We were also fortunate that the timing was not such that benefit processing could have been impacted in any way there. So that all went well. The policy-focused governance model, doing well there. The organizational review, that has been held up at the county for far too long, and HR is having some turnover of positions there that has further impacted our progress there, and that's the project whereby we want to look at the job classifications for all the staff and have those evaluated. I believe they need to be moved up the scale because our jobs are not clerical in nature anymore. They may have been previously, but they're no longer that way. Moving to page 2, you see that the client feedback monitoring for this month, we got 3 out of 19 responses, and our average rating there was 4.67 out of 5, back up from where it was last month where we had the one that was an outlier. Communication metrics will fall off next time since that's been delivered and is now ongoing. Client presentations, for those of you that are members, you should have seen an email yesterday, or active members, I should say. You should have seen an email yesterday announcing that next week we have another presentation. If anyone is a glutton for punishment and wants to, that didn't receive the email, wants to come and see it, it's next Thursday, and we're doing it in the afternoon. It's at 2:30, I believe. Page 3, not a lot going on here. We have a lot of things in queue, as you can see. We are starting to think about an offsite next year in the third quarter. And we did push out the reciprocal salary survey because of other priorities, and the timing that I had initially thought about didn't make a lot of sense. So that's been pushed out a little bit.
So James, could you just kind of remind us what the reciprocal survey is?
So the question brought up by Pat Sullivan was if there's a potential actuarial impact for our members leaving and becoming reciprocal members at other systems where they have higher salaries. And the actuary advised us that we could do a survey of those reciprocal member salaries at other systems to see what the salaries are that they're being paid. And then the actuary can factor that into our evaluation. But that involves looking at all of our members that are now deferred and have outgoing reciprocity, identifying where they are, and then reaching out to those retirement systems to get salary information from them. So it's a labor-intensive process that we'll need to do.
Well, since the county now has a new contract that brings all employees very, very close to the 8 comparable entities.
Is it
I
necessary?
don't know. Is that work project needed?
I
I mean, it will tell us what happened in the past, but it won't necessarily tell us what's happening in the future.
I think it's still worthwhile to do, and the actuary recommends that we do it periodically, and it has been quite some time. I'm not recalling the specifics when we last did it. But it is, I think it is worth doing. It's just a matter of where does it fall on the priority list. And it's also, I believe, next year time for another experience study. So we have that coming at us as well. So.
Well, well, to add that, like for management, for the county, we're to calculate at the end of 3-year period will be 90% of the mean, not 100%.
90% of
The average.
the average today, or
Yes.
last year,
Yeah, right.
will be there
Yeah,
3 years from
3
now.
years, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's for all employees, not management. That's everybody.
But I'm just saying, we just got we just voted yesterday. So I think, I'm not sure, but I thought that at some point, SEIU was gonna be like 95% after.
So for those who are primarily funded out of non-general fund, because there's many
Okay.
people who are partly funded general fund, largely funded out of non-general fund, it's 95%.
Mhm.
And for those who are entirely general fund, it's 90%. And if you have a job that is in a department that's mostly non-general funded,
Mhm.
but your job is the same job classification that exists in a non-general funded, you are also 90%, because you can't have someone with
Right.
the same job getting paid different salaries just because they're primarily funded out of non-general
That
fund.
makes sense.
And then, of course, the county employees assigned to the coast and COBLO get the 5% differential. There's a lot of other add-ons that put people at 95 or 100% of pay at the end of 3 years.
Right.
So one other thing on the reciprocal too, it's gonna depend on too how long the people that are in the other systems have been here. If they're only here for 2 or 3 years and they go down to, say, Sonoma County, it's not gonna affect our retirement as much as if they're here for 25 years and then go down there at that higher salary. So that's gonna be a big factor. So that would be something that would be interesting to know the years of how long all these people are working that are reciprocal.
Right.
Yeah.
Much information to be gathered, and
Yeah.
we'll be working on that as project time allows. So, on the investment side of things, the asset liability study is sort of done, not complete. I mean, we've gotten the presentation from Callan. There's still just the one issue outstanding on whether or not the board wants to hire infrastructure manager or managers. and make an allocation to that space. So I'm not marking that as complete until that is the last remaining decision in my mind. Any other questions on the work plan? If not, I'll turn to the communications metrics.
Okay.
You have the communication metrics, our three graphics. Should be getting more used to this now that I think this may be the third time we've gone through this. In the top graphic, looking at the newsletter metrics, you see a sharp decline there in the subscribers, the number of subscribers. We did some cleanup on our subscribers. We had a significant number of individuals where we had dual email addresses. We had one for them, and then they signed up for another one, but we never removed the first email, so we cleaned some of those up, and that's the cause of that significant drop there. So, still doing very, very well on the open rate. We're up north of 40%, whereas the industry average is 24.7, I believe, is the number. So,
Well, in fact, if someone had 2 emails and now they're getting it to the one they really want, there's probably an even higher open rate.
yes. So the click rate is not very, so what that tells you is the number of people that actually click a link in the newsletter to go through to the landing page, either our landing page or somewhere else. That is not very high because I think, you can take one of two approaches with a newsletter. You can either write a standalone story with, if you want more information, click through, or you can write the teaser to really drive a lot of clicks. We do the standalone stories, and if you want more information, you can go through. So we're not trying to drive clicks. So I don't think that's ever going to be a very significant factor for us, but we have it and we know what it is. If we see a sudden spike in something, we'll know something's going on there. Member Direct, continuing to chug along, adding new members every month. So we're up north of 40% of total membership has Member Direct accounts. And the 457 plan metrics just kind of keep doing their thing. Contributions are down a little bit in the past few months. And these are rolling contributions. So it's rolling 12-month contributions is what this is. Or 26 pay period contributions. So we don't have to do any sort of seasonal adjustment in this. And I'm not sure what's driving that little downtick, but we will have a representative from CalPERS Voya at the retirement seminar next week, again making the pitch to contribute to the 457 plan. So.
Does the other one not come, Mass Mutual? Or they're invited, but they don't come?
We don't even know if they have a rep.
Oh. I heard that they will have somebody at a little thing we're gonna have out in the hallway
Oh,
in a
okay.
couple, 2-3 weeks.
Okay. We haven't been able to find a rep for a
I
while.
think they've had a lot of turnover, yeah.
Yeah. So, any other questions on work plan or the communication metrics?
So, do we need a motion, or is it, we're going to accept it by unanimous consent?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So moving on, discussion and possible action regarding public records policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, the public records policy, there are 2 policies due for review this quarter, the public records policy and the investment policy statement. I do not yet have the investment policy statement because we need to finish the asset liability study first. Then that will determine the asset allocation that will go into the IPS. So that will be coming to you later in the quarter. The public records policy is here. I have no significant changes. I have no real changes to the policy that I recommend, but if there's something you notice, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I just had a statement that for 16 and 17 where it said non-public correspondence or non-public information, that just caused me a little bit of confusion, so I went and looked at the code and it has a description of what's defined as non-public, and it just clarified it for me, so for anyone else that is an issue that's just a private person. And because when it said non-public correspondence, I was thinking, how is that defined when we're public? So anyway, that's my only comment.
So, do we need a motion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I make a motion to approve the public policy record, or that was called public policy?
Public records policy.
Public
I'll
records
second
policy,
that.
thank you.
Okay, any discussion?
Is the second?
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Okay, so the next is discussion and our administrative report, just regarding the administrative report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, you have the administrative report with the final legislative update attached. I did want to also, well, I referred to it earlier, the PSPS plan was implemented. We were well prepared. We had no issues at the office. Everything went fine. But we feel comfortable in our plan going forward. I almost want to say confident, but we're very comfortable in our plan for dealing with the public safety power shutoff. And I'd be happy to try to have Jeff answer any questions on legislation.
Okay. So, I do have like AB 672 as a retirement and reinstatement. I don't really have any questions about it. It just looks like an interesting piece of legislation.
Interesting.
Yeah, so,
So it's a CalPERS bill, but reading the summary, it would seem to indicate that a person on a disability retirement is allowed to be reemployed without losing their disability retirement under certain conditions. Is that your read of the summary, Jeff?
Well, I'm going to read it right now. It says, "This bill would prohibit a person who has retired for disability from being employed by any employer without reinstatement from retirement if his position is the position from which the person retired, or if the position includes duties or activities." So it sounds like they're trying to prevent
Yeah, you're right.
kind of sham disability retirement kind of a thing.
But you can't be a deputy, but you can go work in maybe the DA's office in a clerical position or something like that, is that?
Well, I think that there's always been a concern that disability retirement, let's say as, I don't want to pick on safety, but as a peace officer, and then you go work for a position that's very similar, and has very similar physical requirements as the one you just got a disability retirement from, and that shouldn't happen.
I agree.
that makes sense. And then the other, I don't know if there's any more discussion about that particular bill, but it sounds like it's a good idea.
Well,
And
the legislature will surely shoot that one down.
It's been approved by the governor, so
Oh.
it passed.
And then AB 1184, Public Records Act retention. So,
Requires a 2-year retention period for email.
uh-huh. So,
Everything in the area of Public Records Act is trending toward transparency. we looked at our Public Records Act policy today, and I can still remember pretty well that there was a bunch of litigation, kind of feeding off the anti-public pension media frenzy, if you will, and there were 3 lawsuits. One was Sonoma's system, one was Sacramento, and one was down south, where if you really read the 37 Act carefully, it really precluded systems from divulging certain information. And I think, I don't want to say the courts succumb to public pressure, but I mean, I think people think, well, if the taxpayers are paying for somebody's retirement, then certain information should be made public. And so the courts, these 3 published Court of Appeal decisions more or less said the same thing, which was, yeah, you have to produce all this information, and that's what led to this policy in 2016. And I think courts generally are inclined to find that it's a public record. And public entities are just deluged with Public Records Act requests. Unfortunately now, at least a couple of courts have said you can do rolling productions, because, I mean, especially now with, in law enforcement, with the body cam footage and the new changes in the law there, I mean, the amount of Public Records Act requests are so enormous, and the time is so, you could hire somebody full-time to just do it. So now what public agencies do is say, we can do this much every 2 weeks, and that's okay. And they have to do that for months. Just keep producing public records. Hopefully nobody's watching this video right now. Because we've really been pretty lucky here. And we haven't gotten
We've been fortunate that we've not gotten an overwhelming amount of public records requests. We do get the standard, every year we get a request for the publicly available information on all our retirees, and it's a standard format, and we produce that and email it to the requester, and it doesn't create a huge workload for us for getting those types of requests. So yes, we've been fortunate. Occasionally we will get a request for RFP responses, and one of the most recent ones we received was a request for all the RFP responses, and when the board hired LRS, and all IT billings around the implementation of pension gold. And that one was, they always come from a legal firm, but it's a competitor gathering intel on, what's being done by their competitors in the industry. And there was a lot of chatter amongst the administrators because we all got that same public records request. Some vendors are used to that type of thing, so the invoices that we receive detail the information that is required on the invoice and nothing further. Some vendors were not as accustomed to doing that, so would put information on invoices that need not be there and could potentially pose security risk if shared in the public. So our vendor it has operated in the public space for a very long time, and they put the information on the invoice that is needed, and that's it. So we get them from time to time. They're just, we have it's like everything we do here. We operate in quadrant 2, think about it, create a policy, and then staff knows exactly what to do within the guidelines of that policy. If there's any doubt, we bring Jeff in on what to do with that. If the policy is not exceedingly clear, what we provide on the public records policy. So,
thank you.
Just to, not to get too deep into the minutia, but it says a public agency was required to hold emails. You probably have, what, 5 different email addresses in the office? Every employee has their own.
I think we have 6 or 7. We have a general, and then every employee has one, and then maybe one other one.
We all have one.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, how do you determine which ones you have to say for 2 years, what, out of which email address? And do we, in these other?
IT do that?
I think IT handles all that for us.
Everything's automatically saved by IS. They're archived, so they may not always be in your trash or your inbox, but they are archived and they can be looked up that way.
So you can get rid of them on your individual computer, but it doesn't mean it's gone, it's.
Exactly, it's always backed up.
Yeah.
Unless you're Hillary, and somebody disappeared.
Unless you want.
Only 30 days.
Yes.
So maybe this is an opportunity to kind of think about the use of personal cell phones for work-related business. And there was a California Supreme Court decision not too long ago that I think correctly said just because you're using a personal device, if you're using it for work purposes, it's still a public record. So I think you all need to be mindful if you're using personal cell phones and you're texting on a work-related thing, because if we do get a Public Records Act request that asks for that information, I think what the County of Sonoma did, I don't even know what the City of Santa Rosa has done, and I don't know what Mendocino is doing, but to avoid asking for your cell phone, your personal cell phone, and doing a search, we'll have you sign a statement that says, I haven't used, or I don't have any personal, anything on my phone, and you sign that under penalty of perjury. So you know, especially with the trustees who aren't employees, if you're using your personal devices, you need to be mindful about that. And we can talk offline if you have questions.
Yeah, I just have one question. Employees, just as you were talking about employees, they don't have work cell phones. So like even if they text and say I'm sick today, whatever, they'll they'll use sometimes they will text. They will not call. They will actually text in. Does that mean everybody in the office has personal cell phones, or? I mean, we're not talking about work. They're just talking about, say, calling in sick or whatever. I was just curious.
So, if somebody's calling in sick, or, I mean, that wouldn't be a public record anyway, and there's probably some kinds of communications that are rare, but maybe they're not even considered public records because they're not what the county is in the business of doing. But to the extent that it's a work-related thing, and they're using their personal cell phone, that creates a
that I
record.
get, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on our legislative update? Okay, moving on to general board member discussion.
Do we have any off-record business to talk about today?
No.
Nope, no closed session.
Just a fun one.
Yeah.
I have an announcement to make.
Uh-oh.
Is this a good time to make an announcement? Since, they say that bad news is served best warm, I guess. Yesterday, we listed our home for sale.
Oh.
And Diane and I are retiring from a large piece of property, and yesterday we closed escrow on the house on Bainbridge Island in Washington.
Oh, wow.
So we're, once we sell the ranch, which could take 6 months to, tomorrow to a year, we will be relocating to Washington, which I'm semi-excited about. I'm heartbroken to leave this board, and I wanted to tell you this because, once it's listed, it's public, and also my term expires at the end of November. I wish I times I want to be fair to the county to let them know that otherwise I'd love to stay.
So you won't be commuting from,
By plane.
We'll be down here. We have another property down here, so we have a second home down here. But I just couldn't commit to
that was a joke.
every month.
That's a joke.
Unless you want to give me a travel one.
Using both you and Kathy, that's,
I don't need to feel bored.
A hit.
yeah,
Big hit,
that's
yeah.
heartbreaking.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, you'll be sorely missed. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Will you be able to still come if the property is still, I mean, will you have reason to come to future meetings, or will both Kathy and Lee be replaced right away?
Well, it sounds like you're not gonna run again, right? Are you gonna run again?
Go for it.
Well, the board,
I mean-
the term's up, and
In
so
November.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to be fair to the board to don't reappoint me, but wink, wink, I'm gonna be around for 6 months. Because that throws you out of thinking you have to do it over again, unless you
Unless you
want
wanna
to
do
do
it.
that, I'd be happy to stay, because we'll be around. So.
Well, thank you for letting us know, and thank you for giving us options.
And boo to you.
This has been one of the 2 best boards I've ever been on, the other one being the Blood Bank of Redwoods, but
Thank you.
it's really been a pleasure to meet you all and work together, and I so respect each one of you, the dedication and your opinions and the thought that you bring to everything that we try to do here. So, and James, Chair, the same.
Back at you,
Thank you.
Lee.
And that means a lot
Back
coming
at
from
you.
you, because I think you're very well respected. For you to make that
Yes.
comment that this is one of the 2 best boards you've ever been on, that
Which
carries a
means
lot of weight.
we've come a very long way.
Yes.
It's not unusual for the board of supervisors to take 6 months to find a replacement. Can he serve in his position until a replacement is found?
I believe that's what our,
Automatically.
the 37 Act or the bylaws, whichever it is, would stipulate is that a trustee serves until they are replaced. So,
Good, and we've got you for a while.
I'll leave that up to
and I don't know.
appointing body.
I don't know what's happening at the Board of Supervisors with these seats.
Well, so that is the normal appointment process, is that you're on until replaced. So there are people who have served past their expiration and they just weren't replaced immediately at that point. So.
Okay.
It's like yogurt. You can really go beyond
From here on out, Lee, you're yogurt.
Well, I'll plan on coming on December then, we'll go from there.
May the Schwartz be with you.
Schwartz, be with you.
It's a Mel Brooks reference, sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can we recognize Kendall Smith
yes.
in the audience? So we do have an audience, and obviously a very well-respected person and someone who's been on this board. You were on the board for how long?
8 years.
8 years. Yeah. So, when she walks in the room, she brings a certain gravitas. And I don't have anything nearly as earth-shaking as Lee's announcement, but I think most of you know that I'm leaving a part of me behind on the 4th of November and replacing a knee that doesn't work anymore. So I'd hoped to phone in and still be present for the meeting, but our meeting is a month or a week early. So I have surgery on the 4th and our meeting is on the 6th. So that's just not gonna work. Howard Hospital is not gonna let me call in. But.
I don't think we want to post a notice there and have your room be open
Yeah.
to the public to attend there.
You know, we have such a huge body of interested people who come to the meetings that I'd have no problem with posting it as they come in. But it may jeopardize our getting together at my house for Christmas. If I can do it, I intend to do it. And that also will be open to the public, if anybody cares to come. Here we Kendall. So we're just gonna have to play that by ear unless someone else wants to step in.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. This knee is no longer working for me. So I had to put it off 6 months so that it could be a time of year when I wouldn't have to worry about my gardens. So it's been a long 6 months.
Knowing you, you'll recover quickly.
I hope so. Yeah, that little bit of Irish ornery that I carry.
Okay. Well, also, I just wanted to mention that the Sacres Fall Conference is November 12th to 15th, and we have several people from here attending. Quincy and Tim, you're going also, that's great. And Sherry, anybody else? No? Okay, well,
Do we designate who the representative is to?
We have a policy.
Of course.
You, Catherine, right?
What's the problem?
but,
For
And
voting?
but I don't think that they're,
so by policy, it would be the chair,
right,
unless and we also list alternates. And Judy, remind me, we list Catherine as the voting member and then all the other trustees as
So-
alternates?
Probably Tim
Per
would be
seat,
next.
so chair, vice chair, secretary, then it goes by term on the board, so your years of service.
Okay.
So if you're there, you can vote.
If I'm there and she's not.
If you're there, well, because she'll be taking the votes.
yeah,
Oh.
I'll be up there, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
If you want to vote, you can.
That's a good
If
point.
you were not planning on attending the meeting, it can go to the next person in line.
And you're the next person?
If they were planning on being at the business meeting, and then if not, it can go to the next person in line, and if no one's there but Catherine, she can vote for us.
Yeah, I've
Because
done
we
that
know she will
before.
be there.
I will be there, unless I end up in the hospital, but
No.
I'm not planning on.
Not allowed.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? Do we could have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Yay.
All right, 45 minutes.
What's that?
Is that a new record?
A new record, it is.
I don't know if it is or not.
45
was an
minutes.
hour when you were
Doesn't
gone.
feel like, well,
It doesn't feel
Look at
like-
this.
doesn't
You
feel
got
like
COVID.
Oh, my